I believed the most severe consequence of my garage gathering would be a noise violation. However, when she shrieked, "I'm contacting 911," my heart sank. Her claim was that we were armed and posed a danger. She had no knowledge of who was actually present in my garage, or how her emergency call would ultimately transform everything on our street. The evening began as one of those uncommon, flawless nights when life feels ordinary once more. My name is Ion, and I reside in a tranquil HOA-governed neighborhood, where lawns appear to be measured with precision instruments, and holiday decorations must adhere to approved color schemes. I'm not being hyperbolic. Our HOA bulletin once reprimanded a resident for a non-conforming doormat. I typically exercise caution. I maintain my garbage bins out of sight. I keep my hedges manicured. I even acknowledge the security patrol officer as though we share a friendship. That Friday, however, my younger brother Samir had just returned from traveling. My cousin Bilal, who essentially serves as the celebration coordinator of our family, suggested, "Brother, host it in the garage. Keep it discreet, just refreshments, entertainment, people you know." Garage gatherings are a cherished tradition where I come from. The intention isn't to be unruly. The goal is to laugh excessively, consume too much food, and temporarily forget that adult responsibilities constantly impose financial penalties. Therefore, I cleaned. I prepared the garage as though I were presenting it for a property showcase. I relocated the vehicles outside, swept the concrete, suspended 2 inexpensive LED light strips, arranged folding chairs, and positioned a large cooler adjacent to the side entrance. I maintained the main garage door partially raised for ventilation because the temperature was warm and we were barbecuing. By 7:30, guests began arriving gradually. Here's the detail that renders this entire narrative surreal. The majority of attendees weren't casual acquaintances from my workplace or neighboring residents. Samir had extended invitations to his training colleagues. I didn't inquire extensively because Samir can be evasive in that frustrating manner younger siblings possess. He simply stated, "They're decent individuals. They don't consume alcohol irresponsibly. They'll assist with cleaning." Training colleagues sounded like fitness enthusiasts to me. They were not fitness enthusiasts. The initial indication arrived when this tall individual entered wearing a plain black shirt and denim, but he moved as though he were evaluating the space without conscious effort. He smiled, extended his hand, and said, "Appreciate you hosting us, man." Subsequently, 2 additional guests appeared with the same composed demeanor, cordial, yet watchful in a manner that prompted my mind to question, why do they all maintain that posture? Bilal leaned toward me and whispered, "Why do your brother's friends appear capable of detaining melancholy?" I chuckled, but I noticed it as well. Nevertheless, the evening was proceeding wonderfully. Music was playing. Nothing excessive, merely a playlist. The grill was sizzling. Someone contributed samosas and chicken wings. People were joking, sharing anecdotes, teasing Samir about the haircut he considered stylish. Then the HOA authority figure herself materialized. Her actual name is Linda, but everyone on our block refers to her as Karen because she's earned it like an accolade. She's the type of individual who walks her canine with a clipboard mentality. If you park somewhat crookedly, she'll photograph it as though it's a crime scene investigation. She once informed my mother that our window treatments were excessively dark and hostile. Window treatments. Regardless, I observed her silhouette first, positioned at the perimeter of my driveway, as though she'd emerged from the regulations manual. She didn't wave, she didn't smile, she simply stared at my partially raised garage door as though it personally affronted her. I stepped outside holding a paper plate. "Hello, Linda. Is everything all right?" She indicated the garage as though I were operating a nightclub. "Do you possess a permit for this assembly?" I actually blinked. "A permit?" she stated. "Your garage door is raised. You have individuals inside. Music. That constitutes a violation of community standards." I attempted to remain respectful because my mother always advises, "Don't engage in arguments with someone who derives pleasure from arguing." I responded, "It's merely family and friends. We'll conclude by 10 o'clock. Her eyes shifted past me directly into my garage. She spotted the cooler and her expression hardened as though she'd just discovered evidence. "What's contained in that cooler? Beverages, ice, food." I felt absurd articulating it. Then she performed something that still makes my skin crawl. She advanced closer, craned her neck as though attempting to count heads, and stated, "How many individuals are present? This appears excessive. Behind me, I heard laughter, someone narrating a story. For some reason, that laughter intensified her anger. She looked at me and declared, "I'm going to require you to terminate this." Now, I'm not a confrontational individual, but something within me fractured. Not audibly, just internally. I said, "I'm not terminating it. We're not harming anyone." Her lips compressed. "Then I'll address it." She pivoted and marched back toward the sidewalk, extracting her phone like a weapon. Bilal emerged outside, wiping his hands with a napkin. "That's her again?" "Affirmative." He observed Linda Hast, illy departing, and said, "Brother, she's going to contact somebody." I responded, "The HOA hotline, perhaps." Bilal shook his head. "No, she's executing the theatrical maneuver." I returned to the garage, attempting to dismiss it. Samir was laughing with his friends, and the tall individual who'd arrived initially, his name was Marcus, was narrating an amusing story about someone securing themselves outside their vehicle while holding their keys. Everyone was laughing heartily. I leaned toward Samir and whispered, "Who are your training friends precisely?" Samir grinned as though he'd been anticipating me to inquire. "Oh, most of them are police officers." I swear my brain froze for a complete second. "What?" He nodded casually as though he'd informed me they were accountants. "Yes, off-duty. We completed a lengthy week. They desired somewhere relaxed." I surveyed the garage again, and suddenly everything aligned. The posture, the composure, the manner they identified exits without appearing conspicuous. "Samir," I hissed, "why didn't you inform me of this?" He shrugged. "Would you have declined?" I opened my mouth, then closed it, because honestly, I probably would have panicked and overthought it. Before I could articulate anything else, Marcus glanced toward the open garage door, and his smile diminished slightly. He stated softly, "Someone outside is recording." My stomach plummeted. Through the opening of the partially raised garage, I observed Linda across the street, phone elevated, filming as though she were documenting a hostage crisis. Then she positioned her phone directly at our driveway. Even from that distance, I could interpret her lips when she articulated it. "Yes, I require police. Immediately." Inside my garage, packed with off-duty police officers, everyone became silent in a manner that felt surreal, as though the atmosphere itself had just realized what she was about to transpire. Samir whispered, "She didn't." Marcus exhaled once, slowly, and said, "She did." Then from the street we heard it, the faint escalating wail of sirens approaching closer. Not one, multiple. I remember contemplating, this is about to become the most foolish, frightening misunderstanding of my existence, because the woman contacting 911 believed she was reporting a threat, but she had no comprehension of whom she just summoned them against. The sirens didn't converge all at once. They lingered at the boundary of audibility, like a warning rather than an arrival. Inside the garage, nobody panicked, but the energy transformed instantly. Conversations ceased mid-sentence. Someone deactivated the music without being instructed. Chairs scraped softly as people stood. Not nervously, but deliberately. Marcus looked at Samir. "You didn't mention she contacted 911 genuinely." Samir's face had become pale. I assumed she'd merely threaten it. "She does that." Another individual, shorter, older, calm in a manner that seemed practiced, checked his watch and stated, "Okay, phones away, hands visible. Let's not make this peculiar." That sentence alone made my heart race. I suddenly became acutely aware of how my harmless garage gathering probably appeared from outside. Open door, group of men, laughter abruptly silenced, cooler near the entrance, and now silence. I stepped outside again because someone had to. Linda was standing halfway down the sidewalk, arms crossed, phone still elevated, filming as though she were directing a documentary titled "Neighborhood Under Siege." I raised my hands slightly. Not surrender, just peace. "Linda," I said, keeping my voice steady, "contacting 911 is somewhat excessive, don't you think?" She smiled. Actually smiled. "I informed them of everything," she said. "About the gathering, about the alcohol, about the suspicious behavior." My chest constricted. "Suspicious how?" "You tell me," she snapped. "Why are there so many men in your garage? Why are they monitoring the street? Why did one of them close the door when I passed by earlier?" "That's not," I stated, armed. She interrupted loudly now. "I said I felt unsafe. That word, unsafe. She cherished it. A neighbor 2 houses distant peered out from behind their curtains. Another opened their front door and froze when they saw Linda recording. The sirens intensified. Linda tilted her phone so it was directed precisely at my face. "Smile," she said. "This is for the HOA group chat." Behind me, Marcus stepped just into the doorway, hands open, posture relaxed. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "everything here is fine." She whirled on him as though she'd been anticipating that moment. "Don't address me," she snapped. "I'm not dealing with you people. The police are en route." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes, we're aware." Something about his tone made her pause just for half a second. Then she intensified. "I hope you're all prepared because when they arrive, I'm informing them exactly what I witnessed." "What did you witness?" I asked. She elevated her chin. Men behaving suspiciously, possible weapons, an illegal gathering, and an uncooperative homeowner. She articulated it as though she were reciting bullet points from a script. I wanted to scream, but instead, I felt something colder settle in, because she wasn't confused. She was enjoying this. The first police vehicle turned onto our street, then another, lights flashing red and blue across perfectly manicured lawns and identical mailboxes. Linda's smile expanded with every reflection of light. "Oh, excellent," she said softly. "Back up." The vehicles pulled up rapidly, doors opening almost immediately. Officers stepped out, hands near their belts, eyes scanning. "Everyone inside the garage," one of them shouted. "Keep your hands where we can observe them." Inside, every single person complied instantly. Hands ascended. No hesitation, no arguments. I'd never witnessed such immediate compliance in my life. Linda's head snapped toward the garage. "See," she said loudly. "Look how guilty they appear." One officer approached her. "Ma'am, did you place the call?" "Yes," she said proudly. "I feared for my safety." He nodded. "Okay, we're going to resolve this." Another officer approached me. "Sir, are you the homeowner?" "Yes." "What's occurring tonight?" "Family and friends, small gathering." He glanced past me into the garage, really examined this time. His eyes moved from face to face. Then something changed. Not panic, not confusion, recognition. His posture shifted. "Marcus?" he said slowly. Marcus lowered his hands just enough to nod. "Evening, Jake." Silence struck the street like a dropped glass. Jake blinked. "What are you doing here?" "Barbecue, off duty." Another officer leaned in. "Wait, that's Louise. And wait, is that Chen?" One by one, names began passing between officers. The tension didn't explode, it evaporated. Radios crackled as officers quietly updated dispatch. "Yeah, situation's under control, false alarm." Linda noticed something was wrong. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Why are you conversing?" Jake turned to Linda. "Ma'am, these individuals are law enforcement." Her smile froze. "What?" "Off-duty police officers," he repeated. Her phone dipped slightly for the first time. "That's not possible," she said. "They looked like—" "What?" Jake asked. She opened her mouth. Nothing emerged. The street was completely quiet now. Neighbors fully outside, phones out, watching. Linda swallowed. "Well," she said stiffly, lifting her phone again. "Even so, this gathering still violates HOA regulations." Marcus stepped forward just slightly, voice calm but firm. "Ma'am," he said, "you contacted 911 and claimed we were armed and dangerous." She laughed nervously. "I was being cautious." Jake's expression hardened. "That's not how emergency services function." Linda's eyes darted between the officers, the neighbors, the flashing lights. For the first time since I'd known her, she appeared uncertain. That's when the senior officer arrived. He stepped out of the last vehicle, surveyed the scene, and asked one simple question that made Linda's face drain of color. "Who reported this and why?" The senior officer didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The manner he stood, hands resting calmly on his belt, eyes moving slowly from the garage to the crowd of neighbors, made the entire street feel smaller. Linda straightened up as though she were about to deliver a presentation. "I did," she said quickly, "for safety reasons." He nodded once. "Okay, walk me through exactly what prompted you to call 911. She gestured wildly. A large gathering, men loitering in a garage, alcohol, aggressive body language. I felt threatened. The officer glanced at Marcus. "Anyone drinking?" "No, sir," Marcus said. "We're all off duty. Department policy." The officer turned back to Linda. You reported possible weapons. Yes, she said, defensive now. I didn't observe them, but I assumed. You assumed? He repeated. She hesitated. Given the circumstances, the officer exhaled slowly. Ma'am, contacting 911 based on assumptions is a serious matter. The word serious landed heavily. Linda's confidence fractured just slightly. I was merely attempting to protect the neighborhood, she insisted. That's my responsibility. I'm on the HOA board. That's when the twist arrived. Quiet, sharp, and devastating. The officer nodded again. We're aware, she blinked. Aware of what? Your history, he said evenly. This isn't the first call you've placed. Her head snapped up. Excuse me? He extracted a small notebook. False noise complaints, welfare checks requested without cause, multiple reports flagged as exaggerated or unsubstantiated. Murmurs rippled through the neighbors. Linda's face became pale. I don't exaggerate, she snapped. I document. The officer looked her directly in the eye. Ma'am, 3 months ago you reported a suspicious vehicle that belonged to a hospice nurse. 2 weeks ago you claimed a neighbor was possibly manufacturing drugs because of gardening supplies. Someone behind me whispered, Oh my God. Linda laughed, but it emerged thin. So now I'm being punished for being vigilant? No, he said, you're being questioned for misuse of emergency services. That's when everything clicked for me. This was never about noise or safety or HOA regulations. This was about control. Linda had spent years utilizing authority she didn't actually possess, weaponizing fear because it made people retreat. Tonight she thought she'd discovered another easy target. She hadn't expected witnesses. She definitely hadn't expected badges. The officer turned to me. Sir, has she confronted you previously? I nodded, repeatedly. Any threats? She films people, posts in group chats, discusses getting the police involved. I have every right, ma'am, please stop. That word please was the last kindness she received. He turned back to his team. I want this documented as a false emergency report. Linda's phone slipped from her fingers and struck the sidewalk. No, you can't do that. I can and I am. Neighbors were openly staring now, some recording, some shaking their heads. One woman, whom Linda had once fined for a mailbox color, muttered, About time. Linda's shoulders slumped. She attempted one final maneuver. What about the HOA violations? The officer looked genuinely puzzled. Ed, what violations? The gathering, she said weakly. The garage door, He glanced at me. City ordinance allows private gatherings. HOA issues are civil matters, not 911 calls. Silence. Then he added, And abusing emergency services can result in fines or worse. Linda swallowed hard. She retrieved her phone, hands trembling, and for the first time ever, she deactivated the camera. The officers cleared out slowly. Handshakes were exchanged, jokes were shared. The street returned to normal, but something fundamental had shifted. Before leaving, the senior officer pulled me aside. File a complaint, he said quietly. Tonight helps your case. I nodded. Linda didn't articulate another word. She walked back to her house without filming, without lecturing, without looking at anyone. The garage party resumed, but softer, calmer. At the conclusion of the night, Marcus raised a soda can and said, To the quietest police call ever. We laughed, but the real satisfaction came weeks later. Linda resigned from the HOA board. It turns out once people stopped being afraid, they started speaking. The woman who loved contacting 911 finally learned what happens when everyone sees the truth at once. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to press that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to deliver you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. Don't forget to activate the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story where justice becomes even more satisfying.